But the three were hesitantly standing in front of the dilapidated wooden house. It feels like just a strong wind will destroy it. She's always like that. Ronan prayed that Siphon didn't trick him and Iron. If you want to know, just come and see. They opened the door as gently as possible. What caught my eye was a large spider web on the ceiling. Startled everyone. What the heck? The inside is even worse than the outside. That's really strange. That upstart knight doesn't know how to lie. From the wooden door, a gray hand with sharp claws stuck out, accompanied by a very loud voice. "I'm sleeping well." A huge foot pounded the ground, appeared in front of three people. Surname. Complaining about why the lights were off but still coming to bother you. What just appeared made Azel pale in fear. As for Runin, he was calm. Even surprising. When I first met the werewolf in the smithy. The brat's name. "Are you deaf, werewolf?" About to question. Then GS death immunity card fell silent. Eiffel Ronald said he could. He only came here to buy weapons. The werewolf recognized the Cronshaw family's order. He assessed the three people in front of the two people. Out of mana, Ronan doesn't radiate anything. But the werewolf did not immediately accept. Because even there is a card. But it's not necessarily a member of the Cronshaw family. He yawned loudly. Refused to welcome brats. But it's not like there's no way. The werewolf's face gradually became inhuman. He pointed to the AEO. "If you let me tear off one of the skinny child's arms, then we will consider it." I happened to be hungry, so I was generous. Needless to say, this gesture scared Ale so much that he had to vomit. Especially looking at the sharp teeth. His drool was falling. Now that wretched werewolf Ronald coldly signaled. His face was filled with murderous intent. When he goes too far. He immediately withdrew his ants and thrust it into the werewolf's stomach. Makes me wonder what's going on. He held his stomach and retreated backwards in pain. But Ronald noticed a strange stinging feeling. Now he feels it. It came from the invisible armor on his body. But it's not very important. It'll just destroy it all. The werewolf frantically explained immediately. Everything is just a test. That's the first step in the process. Meet the first-time visitors to the smithy. Just in time, he invented transparent armor. So I want to try it out. That's why he intentionally attacked them. In short, he has no intention of eating human flesh. Ronald didn't understand. How can you make up such a smooth reason? Proves that he doesn't trust us. The werewolf quickly explained. This is the smithy the Cronshaw family trusts. So the inspection process is not unusual. If you are not sure, go ask the young master of Syria. Eiffel is fine. Ronald pondered for a moment, then withdrew his sword. This ridiculous process almost made him kill again. The werewolf stood up and apologized to Io in good faith. Even though he's a wolf, he doesn't like eating people. So it's not Florine. Angel also smiled back. But his face was still pale. The werewolf now introduced himself. The name is Dishen. Just an apprentice at the smithy. But work as a part-time security guard here. After asking Ronan's name, he immediately signaled everyone to follow him inside. The place really contains valuable items. They all went into a tight space. Go ahead and press the hidden switch on the wall. Don't forget to remind them to prepare mentally. Before witnessing amazing things. The cogs move. The ceiling gradually moved away, surprising everyone. 3 country kids get to ride an elevator for the first time. Listening attentively to Did Khan's introduction. It is made from magic stone and pulleys. This road will lead them to the Empire's best and largest smithy. Ran. Cappadocia. Ronald marveled at the scene before his eyes. Did Khan smiled and signaled them to follow him. Because we all passed his test. So he will be responsible. Lead them to meet the best artisans in this kingdom. The sound of metal hitting each other. The sound of the blazing hot temperature rising from the forge was deafening. This bustle made 3 people not believe their eyes. To DAC and said, "This place only forges items for royalty and nobles. But no distinction at all. Just be a skilled master." They are all artisans of this smithy. However, among them there are still more outstanding people. It is the dwarf artist, live in this castle, with 400 years of metallurgical experience. That old dwarf is very stubborn, but Didi Khan respected him very much, because of the top craftsmanship. So the werewolf kicked the door and rushed inside. The room was strewn with weapons. An old man with a shaggy beard was concentrating on beating. Hit a blade. Whoever comes with a big mouth can only go away, Khan. The old dwarf grumbled and went away. Khan. Never keep quiet while working. We all know what to do. The door was full of weapons, so I couldn't open it. Should clean up, old Dorong. The Dorong dwarf stopped working. He guessed. The guests that Didkan personally brought. Not an ordinary person. Didkan proudly showed off Ronin, the person who passed his test. He believes that his swordsmanship will surprise Dorong. Dorong was surprised when Ronin received compliments from Dedi Khan. Besides, he just looks like a young man. I only know how to take pictures of street boys. Dung immediately asked Ronald, "Let me see your sword." He immediately pulled out his piece of iron that was chipped in several places. Show him the dong, frown and gently knock. Made the black iron sword that Ronald was always proud of. Broken without forgetting to criticize a trash sentence. Ronald got angry when old Dorong destroyed his hot goods. He immediately pointed towards the swords he forged. Tell me to take one at a time. Then exposed his swordsmanship. Furthermore, he promised to give him a sword in compensation. So it's not fluorine. Because any bar you choose is 100 times better than a piece of iron. But he carried it with him. Really, Ronald half believed and half doubted. Seeing Didkan nod, Ronald also felt reassured. He took a large sword. But there was a different feeling when holding that iron. However, he still doesn't believe it will be different. Before cutting Ronald, ask old Dorong to be sure. If you destroy anything that belongs to him, you won't let it go. Donan nodded and told him to put all his strength into swinging the sword. The old man's family is rich. Ronald was silent. If so, I will try the technique that Nabi Rose used. Ronald gently pushed the sword behind his back to gain momentum. Preparing position. Making Dorong suspicious that he recognized this technique. Ronald decisively swung a slash. A huge explosion occurred, startling the other blacksmiths. Seeing the explosion coming from old Dorong's house made them curious. It's only noon and the smelter has already exploded. The author of the last art is Ronin. Standing out. Old Dorong stood next to him. Can't believe it either. This guy really destroyed my house. What happened just now? Ronald muttered while he was the one who created this long crack in the ground. Old Dorong remembered that it was Nabi Rose's technique. He guessed he was her disciple. The reason why Dorong knows Nabi Rose. Because he was the one who forged the sword, which she brought with her. Purging sword which Ronin found extremely stupid. It's called Urosa Squash. One of Dorong's lifetime masterpieces. Although the sword is in Ronald's hand. Cannot compare with Urosa. But you can tell by looking at these ruins. You should choose another weapon. Dorong thought he was just a novice swordsman. But it's been a long time since he met a talent like Ronald. He couldn't hold back. Excitedly, he slapped Ronald's back hard, making his father and son choke on their saliva. However, because Ronald is so good, so it was difficult to forge a sword that suited him. The sword must withstand Ronald's force. According to Dorong's calculations, normal materials, it's impossible to withstand Ronald's power. So he needs to use high-quality metal, then melt it with special fuel. At least it must be a byproduct of weaving. Speaking of byproducts, Ronald remembered he had brought something pretty cool. It is Saida's galaxy eggshell. The sound of a hammer banging loudly echoed all over Dorong's smithy. He had to exclaim, "Unbelievable," when the pile of eggshells is still intact, after being repeatedly hit by his forging hammer. Live in this world for hundreds of years, he had never encountered such a precious material. The old man's eyes lit up. when Ronald let him use it freely. That alone is enough to make a sword. The atmosphere was fiery. Dorong told him to come back in 2 weeks. He promised firmly, "I will give you the best sword in this empire." Ronald smiled with satisfaction. New items are coming soon. The other 2 people, Maria and Io, also enjoy it. Dorong, we cannot let your friend go home empty-handed. Although he also wanted to take care of the 2 of them. But now, his mind is only set on this galaxy eggshell. Haha, sounds so good. Old Dorong's happy laugh. When cracking the eggshell, making the 3 of them think at the same time. This old man is crazy. Deep underground. One person was gritting his teeth in bitterness. Because the people above keep causing chaos. He really wants to burn them down. Another person told him to restrain himself. Not long now. From some stupid blacksmiths. Everything in this kingdom will be buried by light. After being the best blacksmith in the empire. Practice the sword personally. Let Ronald feel secure about going to school. Maria and Exo also placed orders with other blacksmiths. Time. This shopping will definitely cost a lot of money for all 3. But you're not the one paying. All you need is a bright gold card. More than the future of the 3 of us. Then everything seems to go smoothly. If there are no problems, then another month and a half. Ronald's goods will be delivered to your door. 2 long weeks. What should you do if you don't have a weapon? As for ACO and Maria, they have to go to school. Walking tour. Suddenly Rona realized there was something familiar about this place. Turns out this is the Galleon Hall. Training area reserved for senior classes. Probably Professor Navi Rose also teaches here. Before, he didn't want to come. Because the professor requires real weapons. But now Ronan has this item. Should I try it or not? At this moment, a cold face suddenly appeared. Made Ronan's hair shiver. Professor Navarro appeared immediately. As if waiting for you here since afternoon. She pulled Ronald's ear to greet him. Long time no see. I told you to come to class as soon as you have a weapon. But why did you come now? How dare Ronald skip class without a chance to explain? Just like that, the professor pulled me in by my ear. It hurt so much that he had to scream. English echoes through the mountains and forests. No one answered but only reached the ears of a girl. Just then, a guy passed by and bumped into me, causing the documents in her hand to fall to the ground. He still opened his mouth and grumbled dully. Don't block the way. Why are the teaching assistants so slow? The girl did not protest a word. With a cheerful attitude, he picked up a stack of documents and continued. In Combat Zone Number 1. Also the lecture hall of Navy Rose. She introduced Ronald to the students in class. Even after the match on the opening day of school. Surely his reputation has spread throughout the 5 continents. But the professor still solemnly introduced himself. This name is Ronald. From today we will study in the same class as you. Ronald politely greeted his seniors. Everyone immediately started talking about him. Everyone knows that Ronald got 2nd place in his freshman year, so he skipped a class. But on the outside it looks normal. I thought I had to exude a male lead aura or something. Ronald heard every sentence clearly but did not speak. There are also a few people here that you want to meet. And there's also that stoner guy that he doesn't want to touch. Right at this moment, the teaching assistant girl opened the door and walked in. I'm sorry for being late. I have urgent work to complete. Ronald suddenly found this voice quite familiar. But I can't remember who it is. Girl's okay. Navi Rose gives time to regulate breathing. Then he pointed towards Ronald to introduce the new student. The friendly teaching assistant said hello first. Nice to meet you. Ronan, a 2nd-year student at the martial arts department, is the class teaching assistant. Her name is Edison Ronan blankly. Isn't this your commander-in-chief? Edison Akalucia, who has outstanding leadership ability, became the first female commander-in-chief, leading the battlefield with alertness and skillful leadership. Known as the Iron Lady, Adson's subordinates spread word of mouth to each other, saying, What flows through Adson's veins is very molten, distorted by blood, but who would have thought that infamous Iron Lady had this look on her face? Surely DNA no longer has any memory. But is that the Commander-in-Chief's true expression? But at that time, Adson asked him to stop her from becoming Commander-in-Chief and be a normal person. But what should I do? What should I do? Put that aside. Since then, I've noticed that ADN has been extremely busy, mainly working as a teaching assistant. Is that such a job? Hey freshman year, you look so bored. Do you want to fight with me for fun? A guy walked up to talk to Ronald, not knowing who he was. Suddenly he wanted to compete with me. He scratched his head and said, "You're too sudden. Sorry kid, im Kadan Ogan third year." Kadan had heard about the rumors at Ronald's opening match. So I want to challenge myself to compete. Ronald currently has something to think about. Who would have thought that Kadan would still be stubborn if he refused? Oh, I forgot. Why don't you bring a weapon when you want to fight with me? Then he changed his attitude when talking to Adson. Hey, you idiot, come here with my practice spear. Adson happily obeyed. Meanwhile, Ronald felt that Kadan was itchy. Why this bastard? Dare to call your respected Commander-in-Chief. You're stupid. Adien brought the long spear to Kadan. He was so irritable and dull that he was stupid. Why do you have a long spear? I changed to short brand a long time ago. Adson quickly apologized to him in front of him, still using long spears to practice. Kadan saw her say that, then used the spear to tap Adson's head like a hammer. How dare you argue with me? The teaching assistant doesn't know anything. She has long been ineligible to take this class. When you go into class and ask for help from the professor, you have to know yourself. Do you know your fate? Although Adien felt pain, he did not dare to protest, and kept apologizing to Kadan. The scene made Ronald even hotter. He grabbed Kadan's spear. Makes him wonder why you interrupted. But Ronald doesn't care. Doesn't he want to fight with you? Then it's time to feed him onions. What's wrong with Kadan smiling foolishly? Suddenly he got angry again. Is it because of that bitch? You two know each other. Or just like some dirty cowards. What are you doing without telling me? Ronald returned the spear to him. Shut your mouth and focus on blocking the attack. Unless you want to die, then just say so. Ronald used his wooden sword to stab straight at Kadan's spear. He used his strength to hold his body so as not to be thrown away. How come you have no mana but are still so strong? Finally, after so much effort, the Kadan was still pushed back. Adem saw that he did not want to use a long spear, so Ronald personally changed to the short spear. Give it to him, but in a way that only you can do. Kadan was angry and immediately used mana to attack. Don't you dare leave here today. Ronald calmly did not yell and scream, but in an instant his spear was cut off. Make many body parts. Am not worried, but wanting to take care of others. Ronald threw a series of punches, causing Kadan to not have time to yawn. Let's see. Who is the one who can't get out of here today? He should feel lucky that this is an academy. If outside, then I sent him back to his ancestors. Kadan lost in an instant, causing a stir in the class. He's in the top 5 and yet he's being punished. Ronald didn't stop there. But the first day of class, he will demand justice for his commander-in-chief. Some dudes. Make her come out here with a handkerchief. If it stinks, go wash it yourself and do it yourself. Perhaps the commander-in-chief. A teaching assistant is my servant, right? Ronan looks like a guy covered in ink collecting debt. Made Adson, the errand boy, afraid to pee his pants. But Adien stopped him, even though she didn't know why. He wants to be a hero to save a beauty. But she felt this was no big deal. Ronald asked her to stand aside so he could show off. Anyone. Do not treat your respected commander-in-chief. So at least in this kingdom, she shouldn't be treated like that. Stop it, Ronald. Professor Navi Rose slowly walked forward. She did not hold him responsible for Kadan, because in real life there is no shortage of such accidents. But what if you cause something bigger? Then she couldn't close her eyes and ignore it. Ronald tried to move, but his body trembled. The aura emitted was too terrible. It feels like a giant snake baring its fangs. Prepare to swallow him whole. It turned out that this was Professor Aura's aura, of the Peerless Sword Saint. Navi Rose is the person in charge of the class. She would not allow any more violations. Ronald was overwhelmed though, but still want to get justice for Adson. Sure. The professor knew that his teaching assistant was being bullied, but she still stood outside and turned a blind eye. That's the story between me and my teaching assistant. Not related to me. So this is the last time I warn you. Quickly stop Navi Rose. Tough response. Whether she is the Sword Saint or his father. But Ronald still refused to give in. My answer is go away. Navi Rose sighed at the end of her life. The only way is to let him know who is stronger. She ordered him to stay away. It rushed up as if it wanted to swallow Ronan whole. As a result, he slept earlier than usual. Ronald dreams about the past. That day he wondered why ADN again volunteered to take on the command position. But everyone refused. Adson replied that one day he would understand. There are things you cannot force on others. But that is destiny. Of course Ronald didn't understand. Don't know either. What is the thing she always carries on her shoulders? Later, before disappearing, ADN apologized to him. I even hope he never forgives her. The image of Adson slowly leaving made Ronald scream. He couldn't open his eyes to look at everything around him. Turns out it was just a dream. There is one thing. Why is the Commander-in-Chief sitting next to your bed right now? Yes. Commander, Ronald blurted out, making it difficult for ADN to understand. He immediately laughed loudly to dispel the awkward atmosphere. Ahaha, it's nothing. I was just dreaming. Ronald didn't understand why he was at the clinic. It turned out that he had fainted at that time, and the professor told her to take him to the clinic. Don't forget to pass on the message to Ronald. I will correct your behavior. Today in remedial class. Okay, Ronald felt more afraid of the professor than of his mother. Should he faint again? When will the professor go to the wrong hole? Only now did I dare to ask. Why are you angry? When she was treated like that by everyone. Ronald tried to come up with a reasonable reason. Well, I just value manners. Imagine a Hiaoming. Adson laughed. She then tells him not to hate Cotton and everyone. She also understands their feelings when they treated her like that. But Ronald is fighting hard. How could she say that? If you knew you were being bullied, and then try to work hard as a teaching assistant. Before that, he was extremely wondering. And now I don't understand anything. Girls' psychology is really complicated. That's it. The professor also knew this but ignored everything. It's really difficult to understand. Could it be that this academy is protecting the nobles? Or why did Edison immediately clear his name? For Navi Rose. Because it was all because she asked the professor to do so. That's because Adson likes to enjoy perks, which she doesn't deserve. Who initially wanted to take that class? You must reach the level of swordsmanship expert. But even after studying for a year. But Adson can only control mana. Just basic. These words startled Ronan in disbelief. Commander-in-Chief. Someone who can emit a huge amount of aura. But there was also a time when it was difficult for her like this. Stars Adson spoke privately with Navi Rose. Because I don't want to burden her. When he accepted her as a convener. When Adson enjoys that privilege. Then she has to pay the price by suffering like this. Still, she can handle everything. But, regardless, I still thank you for what you did. Adson spoke honestly today. She kept thinking. I'm so used to ordinary things. But what Ronald did today makes her feel emotional. Ronald was silent and then decided to ask her. Is there a reason for you to endure so much? Is it because he wants to become the general commander of the corps or not? Edison covered his mouth in surprise. How do you know it's so obvious? That's true, but I'm not sure yet. My dream is become the commander-in-chief of this empire. Ronald didn't know what to say. Adn awkwardly explained this. Uttered. From someone who hasn't reached her level of expert yet. That sounds really funny. But no matter what, she didn't want to give up. Maybe you don't believe it. But she is quite confident about technology. And military tactics. To achieve his dream, Adson is trying every day. At this moment, the bell rang. Next class. Adn had to leave his job as a teaching assistant. Don't forget to tell him to rest well. Before going back to school. After Adson left, Ronald's mind was confused again. At that time, she asked him to stop her crazy dream. And now, what should I do? I've been thinking about that for a few days now. A beautiful day, Ronald. Maria. Go with EXO to the Smithy according to the dwarf's call. But when they arrived, there was no one to welcome them. At midnight last night, carrier pigeons knocked on my door. Even though he said it was the masterpiece of his life. But Ronald kept thinking the completion time was right. Longer than that. But the important thing is that now when we get there, there is no one there. Business is sloppy. At this moment, Ronald bumped into a helmet. He kicked it away, annoyed that there were so many things blocking the way. Don't know what to clean? Is this how you guys receive guests? The two girls looked at each other without understanding why. Ronaldo has been unusually sensitive these past few days. Are boys also on their period? Ronald lost all patience and decided to go inside himself. Anyway, he called them in first, so there's nothing to be afraid of. He fumbled on the wall. Last time Ronald memorized the stone that opened the door. The memory of youth is wonderful. On the way down to the Smithy, Maria and EXO hope that someone will stop the boy. It's a red light day. Ronald definitely had to rush to the spot. See if that old man is eating or sleeping. But the scene before them surprised all three. Logan was engulfed in flames. Bodies were scattered on the ground. Ruined and devastated landscape. A giant was chasing the blacksmiths. Although I don't know why. But they cannot stand still. Look at the blacksmith being bullied. Ronald didn't say much and grabbed the person directly. ISO did not forget to instruct Maria to help search from behind. Help her. Then he and EXO jumped down. Order her to use magic to stop gravity. And use stealth magic. EXO was scared but didn't want to die, so he tried to perform. Invisible hand. The two blacksmiths ran exhausted. One step of a giant is equal to 10 of their steps. Maybe. Today is the day their lives end. Why? A sword slashed across the stone giant's body. Ronald jumped down coolly. These past few days he had been so pent up. Today he'll let it all out on these walking rocks. A giant kicked and punched Ronald. Climb up quickly. Arm. Its strength sliced off the giant's head. The stone head fell down, causing the two blacksmiths to cover their eyes. They recognized him as Doran's young guest. More than that, he defeated the stone giants with just one move. Ronin, after quelling the rebellion. Sit and listen to the two blacksmiths tell everything. Dozens of giant stone men suddenly attacked their smithy. They emerged from the ground and destroyed everything in sight. Hunt down blacksmiths and even capture Doran. Then ran away. Did Khan tried to stop them, but he wasn't good at fighting, so he was taken away too. Ronald understands the urgency of the problem. At this rate, your sword will be bladeless. But it flew away and now there is no more left at the smithy. So Ronald can't sit here anymore. He signaled to the EXO. But Maria went to check on the survivors. If you find someone, treat them. Having Sita with you makes first aid faster. As for Ronald, he has to find the sword again. Haven't seen one of mine yet. Meanwhile, Doran was holding the sword tightly in his hand. Right in front of him was Did Khan, confronting two kickers. Donald kept telling him to go away. But Donald can't abandon him. If you still have the energy to babble, then pick up your sword and do something. Yes. The sword in his hand was for show. Khan walked away annoyed. But Doran cannot. This sword is his lifelong masterpiece. A gran start. I can't tarnish this beloved child. Really, the mentally ill old man was helpless. Even though he has a weapon, you can't exchange your life for a sword. Right now, the two kickers got in one punch. Heaven descends. Doran thought he was worshipping God. But Didcon helped him. But he also didn't have much strength left. The protective charms on the armor are destroyed. Didcon cursed. If he knew death would come like this, then you have created what you imagined. Now, I only feel regret for the long days of partying. At the moment Didcon let go of life. Then from where does a god appear? Slashing the stone giant's body. That god is Ronin. Appearance in the right place. Just in time to make people scream. I don't understand how you got here. On the go. There were bound to be dozens of giant stone men blocking the way. But Ronald smirked. He hates the most people who block his way. So we've dealt with them all. But more importantly, he must find old Doran to get his sword. But fighting each other all this time. The sword in his hand was completely chipped. Doran gave it to Ronald. He was a little sorry that the shell was not yet complete. But now you can use it immediately. Ronald thanked him and then took off his sword to check the new toy. Come on. The two stone giants competed to see who could reach Ronald. First will win. But today no one wins. Because no one can reach you. Ronald gently swung his sword. The slash went through the entire cave. Surprising all three people. What the heck, Ronald? Unexpected. There were also days when he could make a cool cut like that. Doran was excited. Why do you like La Mancha? He inspired the name. From observing my stars. But above all he was extremely happy. For creating such a light sword. But even harder. Miss Rin. Can endure any type of swordsmanship. Doran also didn't add any spells to it. But it has the ability to absorb blood. So Matcha possesses self-regenerating properties. Extremely unique recovery, Ronald guessed. Maybe this feature. Thanks to the use of Sita's eggshells. But it must be acknowledged. Doran's technique is truly top of the line. Go Con. I don't understand why they still have time to talk about 8 things. Now we have to get out of here, he bet. They must be the last people stuck. Hearing that, Ronald nodded. If you don't need to save anyone else. Then I had time to check a few things.
A person sis Tailàndia sense.
Living and dying again and again, Ronald feels. There are a few mice hiding around here. And in there is a supergiant one. Ronald was familiar with the behavior of stone giants. They do not follow herds and will lie quietly. Unless someone causes trouble first. Furthermore, he had never seen suspicious drawings like these. At the back of their head, Doro recognized the magic circle. But it's quite difficult to determine. Because he is not good at this field. Like the remaining mana was too much. Surely this is cunning magic. It controlled the stone giants and drove them crazy. After all, whoever cruelly did this to the lovely blacksmith. But Ronald doesn't know either. So now I have to go get checked. Find answers. It feels like everything will be answered. If we go deeper into this cave. Ronald galloped through the cave. At first he didn't know. But let's follow in the giant's footsteps first. Then we saw even more human footprints. Mana stone. The sensors he carried also showed warning signs. There's definitely someone up ahead. Standing behind this incident. At that moment Ronald heard talking. The same light comes from an angle. He immediately approached to see who they were. Like what Ronald saw made him cry out. Surely the two hooded men are the culprits. But what the hell? With such a huge size. The people who kicked out just now were just like kids at a bar. It seems like it was sealed, but what if it unsealed? Is there an intruder here? 2 guys wearing white robes chatting. They rely on the brainwashing marks on each giant. Cut stones can only be caused by a third party. The Eduan man was upset because he was discovered. More now. They don't have any stones. To awaken this giant thing before our eyes. If so, should I kill them all? Eduan laughed in horror. The Syrian girl shook her head to stop him. Since then most of the facilities have been destroyed. Then, the Empire's weapon manufacturing technology has greatly degraded. And what if their identities are revealed? then that person will not leave it alone. The safest way is to retreat. Edun agrees. But before leaving he wanted to deal with the mouse. Eavesdropping. This sulfur smell made my nose itch. Now Ronald feels danger approaching. It turns out Edun discovered him a long time ago. He launched a fireball towards Ronald, causing him no time to react. An explosion accompanied by smoke and dust. But Ronald's suit is still immaculately clean. Edun saw that he had dodged the fire attack just now. It must be strong. So he will tie your legs first and then cut you off later. How to cast their spells immediately. Make Yona realize. They are not ordinary supporting character names. How could you come in here? This place is not that easy to get into. Edun spoke up. But Ronald saw that he was the one. That's the right question to ask. Who are they that dare to invade the Empire? But no matter who it is, there is only one outcome. Wow. It takes an attitude like this to be worthy of being toyed with. Edun is happy but Syria is not. He continued to play the role. Just enjoy yourself while you can, Syria. There's not much time left. The day this kingdom was buried under starlight. Coming soon. Ronald's face darkened. That giant also spoke. Their kingdom will be buried under starlight. And disappear, what did you just say? You spit out those words. Do you know what it means? Trash rats. Ronald gritted his teeth. The atmosphere suddenly changed. Died. His dangerous smell makes Edun feel wrong. Ronald will not kill them but will drag them back to the station. Because tonight I will have to interrogate the two of them a lot. What the hell is this kid out of his mind? You also want to arrest us? Edun smirked contemptuously, preparing to raise his hand to shoot fire again. Easy as eating porridge, Ronald said as he cut off his arm. Then comes the legs. Cutting people in half, Edun fell to the ground. Syria's face turned pale. He didn't even have time to finish his sentence. It's already been slaughtered. Ronald's hand grabbed her neck tightly. From now on, ladies, you will be wise to answer me. Unless you want to be chopped into pieces like that guy. Syria gritted his teeth and shouted, casting a shield spell. The magic repels Ronald from her. This means that Syria refuses to surrender. Ronald's arm trembled slightly. That magic shield is also sturdy. But the aura of more light. Ronald slashed her magic shield. This time he didn't strangle her, but directly stabbed the sword down. The hood of the cloak reveals the Syrian's ears. A half-demon but with a human mage. In the end, what are their plans? A tornado of fire suddenly appeared from the robbers. Ronald used his sword to cut the fire in half. It's strange that he cut off one of Edun's arms. But what happened? With his disgusting appearance. Stay away from her, you bastard. Edun shouted when he saw his crush lying at Ronald's feet. It seems there was some misunderstanding. Then Ronald said and stabbed his sword at Syria's feet. Let her scream 7 times in pain. They hit Mike's spot. Then everyone has to leave. Ronald ordered Edun. 1 is to follow him to the police station. 2 is, he will perform magic. Divide the body into segments with Syria. Edun gritted his teeth and finally agreed to follow Ronald. He also doesn't want to have to play the villain anymore. You should draw your sword. But for some reason, she laughed like she was crazy. At this moment, a wind blew. Make Ronald's hair flutter in the wind. It's not like there was suddenly wind in the cave. Where is the giant arm that is dry? Throw Ronald away. Edun walked towards. Syria asked about the situation. She pretended to ignore it, but luckily she was able to keep her life. Thanks to Edun pretending to attack. Attract Ronald's attention, so she has time to execute, blurring his perception, and activate the giant's father, although only one arm has been activated. But Ronan was definitely seriously injured. Edun signaled her to go to the church. Report the situation in advance. And he will finish off Ronan here to avoid trouble. Be careful, Syria had to remind him for the first time. She felt it. Inside Ronald is a bloodthirsty beast. Edun also knows. Don't let yourself loose. Be careful, Ronald is not an ordinary monster, but also combat experience. If he doesn't deal with you right now, it will definitely be a formidable enemy. Behind that layer of dust, Ronald's silhouette has gradually appeared. Edu-on told himself not to lose sight of him, but a second later, his 2 arms and 4 limbs were cut off. Next is the head and body. Where did she think she was going? Ronald slowly approached. After cutting the body,
Edu-on.
I already told you that I have many things to ask. That's really you. Ronald's words are like the king of hell's verdict. Syria quickly set up shields. I don't understand why he is still alive. After being so seriously injured, Ronald will never let them escape. But suddenly his body ached. He can't control himself anymore. Syria. I don't understand why the situation suddenly became worse. She lost too much blood, and there is no winning this battle. So the priority is to report to superiors. Prepare yourself. I will find it all. Everything belongs to you and take it all away. Family forever. Your lover and your friend are the lives of all of them. Syria. Before running away, he did not forget to threaten Ronald a few words. Ronald was helpless and confused. I found some clues, but now it's impossible to imprison her. Will everything end up like that time? No, she can't go, Ronald shouted helplessly. I told you to stop. That's right, stop there. Navi Rose's voice rang out with her aura, making Syria unable to move. I also have many things to ask you. First, let me confirm one thing. You are the one who dares to provoke me. My disciple, right? Ronald had never been so happy to see a professor. Like now it's nice to meet you again. I didn't expect to see you here. Navi Rose saw that he was still talking as much as usual. Still fine. Now it's time to get to the main story. Deal with the person who dares to bully her disciples. Full body Syria. Paralyzed under the gaze of a python hunting its prey. People can create this pressure. It can only be a peerless sword saint. Instinct told Syria to flee. But Navi Rose's hand grabbed her neck and ruled. You have caused many things, which should not have been committed. But the most infuriating thing. It's you who dares to touch my student. Syria. Seeing Navi Rose's face is even scarier. The boss did not have time to call for help. Then, the python's deep throat was before her eyes. This is her open future ahead. After dealing with Syria, Navi Rose returned to Ronald to end everything. Ronald wondered, is it the future of Syria? What you mentioned is Ronaldo Land prison or not? Navi Rose nodded. But I don't understand why he asked. Ronald thought about that place. First the fortress screamed Ronald. The prison is located in the middle of the sea. A place where criminals who oppose the empire are detained. Famous for his brutal interrogation methods. Ready to use any method to make the prisoner confess. If so, Ronald, ask permission to participate in the interrogation process. 2 of them. He begged the professor because this was an important matter to him. He came back to life just because of this. At that time, at the Smithy, the rescue process was almost completed. Exo Maria. Even Sita was exhausted. Exo was worried about where Ronald had gone and never returned. Maybe something bad happened? At this moment, Ronald's voice rang out. You guys are calling my name. He carried the weapon on his shoulder. Just returned in the most devastated form possible. I heard that when Maria led reinforcements, Exo, and Sita rescued more than half of the blacksmiths, buried under rocks and soil. But what's important is whether anyone was seriously injured. Should be us asking. Why do you look so broken and injured all over your body? Maria spoke loudly. Sita saw that her father was no longer clean and tidy, but it still wants to be hugged and comforted. After being exhausted from work, Ronald doesn't care about his injury now. His attention was already focused on those 2 invaders. A few hours later, at the rendezvous point, take the prisoner to the Ronaldo Land cliff. In the Reno forest, the escort team from Ronaldo Land flew in, on the back of a giant eagle. The people escorting the prisoners all wore black crow masks. Hello, Navi Rose. We received a summons from the Empire. Come to escort the prisoner. Navarro assigned 2 names to them. Don't forget to mention Edu-on's name. Has an uncanny ability to reproduce, so they keep in mind during interviews. But it seems that's not the problem. But it was a big surprise, making their interrogator happy to play.